In this video, I wanted to briefly cover a couple of logistics around revenge, around justice, around response to traumatic abuse, PTSD, and the spiraling down co-infection, protocol or process that is very likely the outcome. Meaning, when you have been shattered, shamed, are overwhelmed and in pain, and no one responds effectively to that, including me, including you, it generally gets worse. It's like a finger. You cut it, and then no disinfectant is applied, and you get tetanus, and then that's not cured, and then you can't work, and then you get evicted because you can't pay your mortgage, and then you become filled with hate and rage, and nobody wants to be around you, and so it just goes down, right? And so, as this was happening to me, I wanted them to pay. I wanted them to make it right, because everything that went wrong, I knew it wouldn't have happened if they hadn't done this and they hadn't done that and they hadn't done this. And I also knew that it would be so easy for them to restore my sense of normalcy, my sense of safety, right? All they had to do was, make a commitment, apologize, do this. But here is what I've come to, after going through this, waiting for them to pay, all this stuff, is, first of all, the criminal justice system is not justice, it's torture, right? It doesn't matter how much they pay you on the other side. It's paying you to go through years of torture and reliving events. It's not justice, it's torture, right? And so that's something I looked into enough to just notice that my well-being went down talking to my attorney. Now, this could change, but for example, the attorney that was advertising as being good for sexual abuse had never taken a single hour of psychological training on how to navigate trauma. I'm here to make lots of money for me, but I don't want to spend even an hour hiring a consultant to teach me how to talk to traumatized patients. It's sheer stupidity, right? It's more abuse and more abuse upon more abuse, right? And then don't think that the judge is going to be well-versed in providing empathy to your case. No. They're in a sociopathic environment with fairly high levels of sociopathic protocols and feelings within them, right? They're not educated beyond the normal population on trauma and PTSD and sexual abuse. Probably less so. They're probably desensitized, right? So it's not justice. And so the next problem comes that the person who is insensitive enough, sociopathic enough, stupid enough to cause you, sustained traumatic abuse is not intelligent enough, if they even want to, and they may not be intelligent enough to want to. It takes a fair amount of intelligence to really want to make amends and learn from something. Most people have the intelligence, I made a mistake, I'm bad, I'm going to be punished, I want to run as fast as possible. Well, that was my, Peter Sandhill, my abuser. He wanted to run as fast as possible from the situation so that he wouldn't be punished, right? Because most people are intelligent enough to realize they've done something wrong that they could get in trouble for. But the culture doesn't teach how to respond to abusing someone and deal with intergenerational abuse. It doesn't teach that, right? It teaches people to run and scapegoat, because that's what the cult does. Who's to blame? Who are we going to punish? And it's often some person who has, no chance in hell of doing anything differently. There's no idea what's going on. They're just in a pattern that they don't understand because the cult makes it taboo to talk about. So I wanted justice from, and I wanted amends from someone not intelligent enough to provide them. See, and here's the thing, if they were intelligent enough to respond and heal their abuse, they would have been intelligent enough not to cause the abuse. And if they were intelligent enough to learn, they wouldn't have fought learning to this point, right? And so it's kind of like trying to get water out of a stone. In other words, there is no justice, whether it's in the courts or trying to harangue little bits out of your offender. There's no justice, right? It's a massive injection of pain that has a probability field of getting much, much worse because it isn't personal. It's not like you and your offender. It's not like me and my offender thought, like, how can we specifically hurt one another or arrange for me to be hurt, right? My offender was blind as a bat in any number of areas with me and just as blind as a bat with other people, right? But it's not like he's living in a vacuum. It's not like my neighbors were suddenly, vastly more competent in terrains of trauma. They weren't, My landlord didn't say, when I explained what had happened, no, my landlord made it worse, right? So in a traumatically incompetent culture, there is lots of trauma that is caused, and very little of it is intelligently dealt with, because otherwise it would be a traumatically informed and empathic culture, which it isn't. So overall, I would say I went down. I caused a lot more pain for myself, trying to get someone who knew what they were doing, right? That was very, very difficult. And then if you could find someone who knew what they're doing, then that they cared, which is part of knowing what they're doing, and then that they would respond in a way that would lift things up. Because I knew I didn't know what I was doing in this terrain. If I had, I wouldn't have allowed the abuse. I wouldn't have participated in it in any way, right? I would have avoided it. I would have said, no, that's not right. I would have seen the abuse coming, and I would have taken another turn. But I didn't, right? In a traumatically illiterate culture, we don't see the trauma coming because we're traumatically illiterate. It's a cult blind spot. So, as unfair as it is, as unjust as it is, and what I was most upset about, knowing that I didn't know what I was doing, was that I was going to work my ass off to fix the problems and stupidity that was given to me by authority figures, by therapists. This was a therapist abusing me under the influence of psychedelics. And I had no way of seeing any of that coming, right? I've never taken a psychedelic before. It's enraging to find myself worse, paying all this money to get worse. So, I started studying, I started doing things to alleviate the pain, and slowly I became more traumatically literate, more confident, etc. But I think the bottom line is as enraging and as upsetting it is to accept that most of our cult doesn't have a clue how to respond effectively to trauma. Because if it did, it wouldn't be causing so much trauma in the first place, particularly to our children, the people least able to deal with it. And so it's not about justice. It's not about fairness. It's about mechanics. Your abuser is too dumb to heal the abuse because if they weren't, they wouldn't have abused you, right? Your cult, your culture is too dumb to respond to the abuse, or they would have prevented it. They would have trained you for it. Your justice system is unjust, right? You come out of there with a big legal bill feeling worse And then they say, well, justice has been served. How? Like 30 people have gone in there and felt terrible and spent lots of money, and juries have been ripped out. How is that justice? It's punishment on all sides, right? So then what do you do, right? And I think the most scary thing for me was that I would do my very best and fail, and nobody would understand that the pain I was carrying was given to me by my therapist, was given to me by my parents, was given to me by my government. And the manual for how to deal with it was not. And that I would fail and die alone and unloved because there was no way out. I didn't know what to do, right? That was my worst fear. And it's like, I'm not going down alone. I'm going to drag my offender with me. If I'm going down into hell, you're all coming with me, right? And that takes a certain amount of energy. It's not bad. It's a stepping stone, right? But going down into hell and taking them with me or taking them with you is it's not justice. It's not a resolution, right? So ultimately, right? Ultimately, it is often the trauma survivor that starts learning more than everyone else, that knows what works for them better than everyone else, that copes, that gets through, right? And it's probably more efficient. It's probably more efficient to start reading The Body Keeps the Score and other traumatic books, watching YouTube videos, empathizing, reading the various cases and studies out there. I watched a video called Holy Hell that helped me empathize and understand with a lot of what I was going through. Documenting it, writing about it perhaps, having empathy for yourself, knowing that you cannot you cannot function right off the bat the way you could before. But what can you do to make your life a little bit better? That's the only intelligent path. You're surrounded by morons and have been a moron in a moronic culture, right? So the only thing you can do is become a little less of a moron and improve your odds slightly and document it so that others who follow in your footsteps can improve and iterate the limited technology that you're exploring. And that is a gift. You doing that is a gift. It's not earned. The cult doesn't deserve it after all the bullshit it dumped on you without a manual. It doesn't deserve to be enlightened by your benefit. But it is the only way forward, right? If you grow, people will benefit from it. And I appreciate you for the effort. Whether it fails or succeeds, I appreciate you for the effort. I appreciate you for clawing out of the shit that was dumped on you and of trying to figure out how to make something, to move forward in a way that will have a blinking light on that blind spot. Ding, ding, ding. My life can be a blinking light. Don't do this. Ding, 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 right? The first person that drives along and looks like a little 2-inch pothole and it's 3 feet deep and your car bellies out, you can't get out. Ding, 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 let me be a light. Don't go into this pothole, right? The people building this road didn't know what they were doing, right? The people repairing this road aren't doing their job. But I can be a marker. Don't do this, and here's why. I can also figure out, now that I'm that, can I get out of this pothole, right? It's not my fault, right? But there is a participant, right? Meaning nothing happened. We're all participants. No one's a bystander. People say, that's not my problem. It's a lie, right? These are probability fields around all of us. And the reality is that evolution doesn't favor 99% of species. 99% of the energy patterns that were once real on this planet are dead. They've evolved into us and into other things, right? And if we want to participate in evolution, rather than end up in the 99% that's going to be extinct, we're going to have to figure out how to solve some of these problems. So it's an evolutionary challenge, and we're tagged with a dump truck load of dung, and we've got to turn that into fertilizer in some way and see that that moves forward. If you die, that will be a marker. Death heads in this direction. Don't go down this direction. That's useful. If you live and tell the story, it will be a marker. Don't do this. That's useful. That's how people grow. That's how you grow. If you, best of all, figure out how to get out of the hole and then hopefully take a few people out with you, that's even more useful. That's high intelligence, right? You got out of the hole that was given to you, and you helped a few out of the hole. That's the only way to transcend bitterness, terror, meaninglessness, and excruciating pain, is to actually become part of the solution. Thank you.